Let's do this. Good afternoon. This is Mayor Weinberger. This is the April 15th, 2020 COVID-19 update for the city of Burlington. We've got a pretty full briefing for you today, and we're going to get right into it. Thank you for tuning in, and I want to thank Dr. Stephen Loeffler, President and Chief Operating Officer from the University of Vermont Medical Center, for joining us. Dr. Loeffler has been joining us every Wednesday on what's happening up in the medical center, this front lines of this battle against coronavirus. And, a couple weeks ago, we started voicing some optimism. The curve was flattening. You could definitely see it in the numbers last week. And we got another week of numbers, and Dr. Loeffler's back. How are you feeling about things, Dr. Loeffler?
So, Mayor Weinberger, still I continue to be very positive that we're in good shape. So we saw a decrease in new cases over the last couple of days, which is a good thing. Only 7 new cases diagnosed in Vermont on April 15th. So that's a really good sign. And the medical center continues to have around 20 positive cases, which I think is exactly the number I told you last week. So we are relatively steady. We have today in the hospital 20 positive, mixed between a couple floors. In our ICU, we have 13 people who are rule outs at the medical center. Our ventilator supply, our ICU capacity is all excellent. We're in really good shape there. And I also want to let people know some really good news. We're discharging 1 or 2 people almost every day who are in the hospital with COVID who are recovering. And we've had 7 people now that have been able to get off the ventilator and go home. So that's really, really good results. We're proud of those here, and we are getting people back home and able to recover from this virus. So really good news. In terms of the numbers and the modeling, it really started to look like, as we've been saying now for 3 straight weeks, that we have absolutely flattened the curve. We're in a long, slow, steady state now. I'm starting to be optimistic. We're seeing some drop off in new cases. That's a good thing. So that's very positive. And so people are asking a lot of questions about, what does this mean? I will tell you that there's a couple different models out there. The state has a model, the network has a model, the federal government has a model, and they differ slightly on our peak date when we have the most positives at one time in the state of Vermont. And they're all anywhere from next week, April 20th, out to mid-May. So that is still in front of us, but I'm actually quite optimistic at this point that the things that we've asked Vermonters to do, and Vermonters have made the tough, really difficult decision to, stay home, stay away from each other, has saved a lot of lives. And I think we're going to stay on a flatter curve. One thing we have noticed in Vermont, as well as in some other states, is areas where people are co-housed, like nursing homes or prisons, are potential hotspots for clusters of cases. We've had that in Burlington in a couple nursing homes. The Northwestern Correctional Facility now has quite a number of cases. Excuse me. And so we're planning for more of that. We unfortunately expect that could happen again, and we're going to be trying to be more proactive on how to help prevent those, but if they do happen, how we would manage those more efficiently. Our staff is actually doing amazingly well. We've changed a lot of things here in the past month preparing for this. We've changed our visitor policy. We've changed when staff show up for work, they're all getting their temperature taken. We're masked, everyone now. We're changing people's work, exactly what they're doing, and they've been incredible. They've been adaptive, flexible, and here to help their patients and their community. So our staff has been incredible, and they're in good shape. They're ready for what comes next. I thought I would just touch base on testing because we've been talking about that, and we had a milestone yesterday at the medical center because now we're starting to do our own testing at the medical center. Our lab has been hard at work for this for the past month, and now we are actually doing real-time testing at the hospital. That's a huge opportunity to increase the capacity of number of tests we can do, and it also improves how fast we get results back. So we are doing a rapid test here. We don't have an unlimited amount of those yet, but we're getting more every day. And we're able to do a test that's still back within hours. So partnering with the state of Vermont and still some outside labs, our capacity for testing is the best it's been since we've all been talking on these conferences. And I'm really happy to have testing here at the hospital because that is something that's in our control and does give us the capacity to make sure that as we move people around the hospital or back home or to other locations for care, we can be sure what's going on. So really good there.
Yeah, that is great, Dr. Leffler. What can you explain to those of us that, what makes for the huge increase in speed versus the old system to go from, 3 days a few weeks ago to 45 minutes or 3 hours now? What's the change?
It's a bunch of stuff. So a couple weeks ago, the state was doing some tests for us, but the state's capacity is somewhat limited by the number of people that are working there and the size of their lab and the equipment they have. So they could only do a certain amount in a day. And the rest of them we were sending out. We were sending them by airplane to another location. And that location was getting lab tests from across the country. And we were getting batched in with thousands and thousands of other tests from all over the United States vying for getting their results done. So the first thing is at the medical center, we can prioritize what labs need to be done quickly. We do that all the time. People have all heard on TV the word stat. When you need something back right now, we can prioritize which ones need to be done. The second, so part one is doing them here allows us to be very efficient about sending them down to our own lab in our own building and getting them done. And we've also worked hard with the state to make sure the exact right ones are going to the state so they can be done quickly and get those results back, and the right ones are staying here. And we're still sending some out of state, but I think over time you'll see less and less of that as we get more comfortable doing these and more capacity. So that's a big one. And
is this something you think we'll be able to sustain into the future as the demands for testing become greater as we reopen?
I do. I mean, we're not at a point right now where we have unlimited testing. So we don't have testing on demand for every Vermonter, but we're exponentially closer to that today than we were last week and a month ago. So we are getting closer and closer to that. And we are literally increasing our testing capacity on a daily basis. And the last thing I thought I'd touch on is as we're starting to see the numbers really flatten out for the number of new positives, I heard the governor starting to talk about, what does reopening look like? So I will lead the reopening of Burlington and the state of Vermont to the officials who do that kind of work. From the hospital, we're just starting to think broadly about what would be safe to do, when would we do that, what are the criteria, and we're starting to come up with those. We're not ready to tell you anything like a date yet, but we are doing the work of what would have to be in place. What I think people have to realize is that without question, as we starting to loosen things up and we start to let people do more stuff that they really want to be able to do, we're going to see a bump in cases. It's how this is going to go. If you follow Europe, even in places where they're through the worst part of it, when they loosen up, there are cases that are still coming. And so we have to make sure at the hospital we have capacity to care for those cases, as well as do more of the elective things that people have been waiting so patiently for while we've gone through this work. And so we have more to do on that, and we're not anywhere near yet saying what date we would look like, but we are starting that good work and planning for the next 3 to 6 months when I think there'll be much more going on in Vermont, but it may not look completely normal.
Excellent. I appreciate how you frame that. One metric that is being discussed, I mentioned in my state of the city, a week and a half ago, is that we really need a sustained, a very low rate of new infections. Do you have any perspective on how to define very low for Chittenden County, or do you have any sense of like what we should be looking for, what would constitute that from your perspective?
So I think, like the models, everyone is throwing around some different criteria, and I don't know that since this hasn't happened in 100 years, I don't think anyone knows exactly the perfect criteria. I want to be honest about that. But the ones we've been just talking about is a decrease in the total number of infections over 14 days, over a couple weeks, a decrease in the number of cases that are in the hospital, a number of cases that are in critical care in the hospital, close to unlimited testing. So it'll be very easy to test people at any time we need to be able to pick people out who have it quickly and then get them into quarantine and do good tracing back on those people, and unlimited supplies of personal protective equipment so that we're really functioning back to normal state on that. And in all those areas, some of that stuff is getting close to happening, which is why it's the right time to start, like I said, high level conversations about what would we do, because it will not be a light switch at the medical center to go back to normal. It'll be far from that, just like it won't be a light switch in the city or the state or the country. I think we'll start doing some little things, carefully following what happens, and then hopefully we can be encouraged to slowly build on that. Excellent.
You're feeling good about PPE still at the hospital?
I am. I actually went over and toured our supply chain facility today and met with all that group. And first off, they're amazing people. They're doing incredible work. But we have stuff arriving every day now. And our modeling shows that the medical center and the network and even the state is in general in good shape for PPE. We could be a little better because we think this is going to drag on for a while. But we're, once again, in very good shape right now.
And I know your people on literally on the front lines of this battle, coming into regular contact with the virus. I know a number of your staff have been infected over time, but can you speak to how they're doing? And is their health in decent shape?
Yeah, so I'm extremely relieved to tell you that to this point, we've only had 29 total employees out of 8,000 become infected with COVID. I wish it was 0, but it is only 29. Interestingly, about half of them, we believe, did not catch it at work. They caught it through their spouse or community or travel or something like that. Of that 29, 18 of them are fully recovered and back to work, and the rest of them are recovering at home. So I think that's reassuring to our staff that the protections they're using expertly are working for them, are keeping them safe. But like I said, we really want to make sure that we'd like it to be 0 and not another single infection. So we're working on that every day.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Dr. Leffler. We know around the world, healthcare workers have been some of the victims of this, and it's very selfless work always that your nurses and doctors do for the community, but particularly feels that way during this crisis. I hope your team knows how much their efforts are appreciated. I've seen all sorts of impromptu art exhibits and symbols of appreciation that Burlingtonians have tried to message to your people, but I know they got their heads down dealing with the crisis most of the time. I hope they hear enough directly just how greatly the community appreciates what they're doing to keep us safe 24 hours a day right now.
I appreciate that. And so I will tell you that we have some great chalk drawings on the sidewalks. We have some signs put up from our community coming in, and the staff in general have been very well fed by the community throughout this event. And so they know they have community support behind them. And I can't tell you how meaningful that is to them to know that people appreciate what they're doing, and we're in this together. Thank you.
Great. And, since I'll just mention one more thing, and it's on that point, and it's on the point of making sure healthcare workers get the supports they need. I know it was a question that came up in the early weeks sometimes, and that the UVMC has made partnerships with local hoteliers that are donating hotel rooms so that nurses and doctors that don't want to go home and expose their spouses have the opportunity to essentially isolate themselves and be able to get their rest and not put their family at risk in any way. So I just thought the public would appreciate knowing that UVMC has helped make that happen with local hotel operators.
Yes, so we've been doing that for a full week now, and we have around 20 people a night that are making use of that. We have been able to expand capacity, and we have more if we need it. And so it is it's a partnership once again with our great community businesses who have allowed us to do that. And it is very reassuring for our staff to know that that's available if they might need it.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Leffler, always conscious of whenever you're with us, you're not, we're pulling you away from life-saving work, let you get back to it. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your leadership and resolve and reassurance through this. You've given me a lot of optimism that there is a path, and I think you're doing that for the whole community. And we'll look forward to having you back again in a week.
Talk to you in a week, Earl. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna shift now. We're gonna check in with our resource and recovery, Luke McGowan, our director there. We're gonna have him join us in a moment. I wanted to start, and I hope I've got my camera set up here right now. I'm not, so I was hoping, Olivia, we could pull up the pie chart that shows the work of the recovery center so far. And I guess I've got a couple windows open here now. I see it up. Thank you. And a couple things I wanted to highlight here. So this Resource and Recovery Center, it was created, what is it now, Luke? I'm lost track. 3 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago now?
March 23rd is when we launched.
So what is that? I think that's 3.5 weeks ago. And in that time, almost 600 requests for help have come into the resource center. This figure is, I think from my sense of the numbers, we don't have it right there, but it looks like it's up a little bit in the last week as your team has done a great job putting posters around the banners around the community, getting the word out to more people how they can reach us. And you can see people are getting in touch by phone, they're getting in touch by email. And you can see there a pie chart showing what are the requests for help been, or what have people been reaching out about. I guess it's important to point, it's not all requests for help, it is also offers of help that come in through the RRC. And a full quarter of the effort is going into the community masking effort right now. Requests regarding physical health. We know that our small business community here in Burlington, like small business community nationwide, globally, has been hit very hard by this financial emergency. And so there's been a lot of engagement with that group. And then the next one is people that have contacted the city because they're having some kind of issue collecting their unemployment insurance. And I did just want to talk about this for a minute because I think this is a really important topic. This is, and it's going to be important for months probably as we work our way through this recovery and back onto a stable footing. This is really for millions of Americans, tens of thousands of Vermonters. This is the main way to people that it's going to make an impact in their lives and make sure they have the resources they need to make it through this. And the number of people that have, tens of millions of people have applied for this in recent weeks, just a staggering figure, completely unprecedented. And it's putting strains on the state systems for collecting unemployment insurance, unlike anything else. It's really, and a lot has been written and talked about this. I won't rehash it all. Really, we're asking this unemployment insurance system to do something very different than it was designed initially to do. Normally, the way people, the magnitude of people making claims, why they're making claims, is all very different. And it's really one of the challenges of governing through this period, that we have to repurpose this system for the moment. And that's not easy to do. I did hear that Governor Scott announced today that they have added 25 new staffers at the State Department of Labor in the team that fields the request for unemployment insurance claims. And that is really good news. I think certainly part of The challenge there has just been that there just aren't enough people there, and there's been that the system has been overwhelmed, and they've been trying to address that in a number of ways. And this sounds like a really important addition. I do want to make the point that I think there are things that can be done here that have more staff power, more manpower. We did almost a couple back in the early part of the month. We communicated to Secretary Harrington what we were hearing here on the ground in Burlington from constituents in the RRC, and some possibilities for how the system could be improved. So separate from putting more people on it, just are there some policy changes, technological changes, practice changes that could make this system flow more smoothly? And we're going to stay on that, because this is the lifeline for people to have the resources they need through this emergency. We're still hearing from a significant number of Burlingtonians that they are experiencing a variety of problems. That's why they're getting in touch with the RRC. We're going to continue to follow up on this and work with the state to try to get this system working as well as possible, as quickly as possible, for again, what is going to be a long road ahead. And it is good to hear. I know some things are working better. On my coffee this morning, heard from one constituent who mentioned that for a couple weeks in a row that one of the automated lines that they have been able to access has been working well. But there's more work to be done here, and I want Burlingtonians to know we're on it still. We're going to continue to push on this until it's working as smoothly as it should. Luke, let me turn it over to you now, and what else can you report on the work at the Recovery Center? Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, of course. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Right. Yes, I think you touched on something important, which is kind of every day at the Recovery Center, it's a different day. It sort of depends on what's going on. It changes the volume of calls. So you'll see, so kind of to date, you're certainly seeing that volunteer mask making, the initiative that was put together to create masks and get them out to the community. That was sort of a huge amount of call volume last week, and that started to taper off a little bit. We're still seeing calls this week. But what's happened over the last couple of days is we've seen more calls around sort of physical health, homelessness, and housing issues. And so we're constantly kind of tweaking how we're able to get the right resources to the right people based on the needs that are arising. And, you went into unemployment, we see our job is not just to answer the immediate question, but if we see ways to improve, we want to get that information to you so that you can then advocate at the state level for us based on kind of what we're hearing at the RRC. So that's, I think you did a good job sort of summing up a big part of our work. I thought it would be helpful to share too that, these numbers, represent real people. And, first of all, just at this point, it is, I think, well over 600 people that we've sort of helped in some way. It's also people from Burlington and outside of Burlington who started calling the RRC because they appreciate just having a human voice to talk to. So often the hotlines that they're trying to reach have been oversubscribed. And so that's been one of the biggest benefits of setting this up quickly is a lot of people, they have specific questions, but maybe if they're worried about rent, they haven't realized that they can apply for unemployment insurance, so we can help them with that. So we're finding there's lots of benefits to having this interconnected virtual system in place. And yeah, just on this being real people, we did get, everyone's in this crisis, this kind of long running crisis, but there are sort of glimmers of positive feedback that we get too. So over the weekend, we helped someone who'd been homeless for 2 years, had recently found housing. So he'd been in housing for a month, but it's difficult to move into new routines in that way. and difficult in normal times, especially difficult in the crisis we're going through now. And he called us looking for help, just getting toiletries, getting, some of those kind of things that we all need in our life. So we were able to hand deliver those things to him. And then he made a point of calling back to say, I want to, thank you, and I want to pay this forward. And so that's just meaningful to us when we hear that kind of feedback. So I think that's kind of the, summary of what is going on at the RRC, and we'll keep reporting back on kind of how the calls are going up and down. And so we expect things will be different at the end of the month as people are thinking about moving and renting. So we're starting to prepare the team to answer those questions and deliver resources. But expect to hear more in the days ahead.
Yeah, well said, Luke. Look, I really do think that is a striking element of this emergency that just feels different to me from past emergencies. Just how long running it is already been. I mean, we're already more than a month into this. It's going to go on another month before we're expecting the stay-home order to lift, and then who knows how long after that we're going to be dealing with this economic crisis as well as continuing to battle the virus. What the needs are really are evolving, and I think the RRC was set up to anticipate that and to respond. The mission of the RRC continues to be, we want to get as many Burlingtonians as much help as possible, as quickly as possible. And what that help is shifting over time. But we're going to keep putting our back into delivering on that. And I think you have my understanding is there's a new tool launching today that, kind of really speaks to how we're trying to make sure we're getting people the help they need.
Yeah. So thank you. So the RRC, it's a call team, it's an email team, and it's also now a website, has been a website where all of these resources are put together. So all of the work we're doing, I think the best visual representation is the resources page on the City of Burlington website. And we, actually, if anyone's viewing, I recommend you can pull up that website right now from home. But what we've done over the last week is we decided those first few weeks of the RRC, it was all about just getting as much information up there as possible. And so that's kind of the RRC 1.0. Over the last week, and I shout out to our communications team, which, like everything at the RRC, is a collaboration between folks from CEDO and BED and a lot of folks contributing. But what we've done now is what we're calling RRC 2.0, which is all about improving the quality of the information and making it more accessible to people in lots of different ways. So if you can see on the slide, or if you're looking at the website at home, we realize that people, they don't necessarily see, they see themselves, depending on what the issue is, as I am a renter, so I need help finding rental resources. Or I am a property owner, I'm trying to understand the latest on property taxes from the city. Or I'm hungry and I'm worried about food. What are those resources that are available? And so we sort of recreated the website to make it more accessible along those very specific issue areas that people identify with. So we hope that folks will find the site more easily kind of navigable as they're looking for the resources they need. Another important element of accessibility, and actually if you scroll up to the top, we made not quite the top, sort of in the middle, you can see there's translation resources right. So sorry, we're navigating in different places. So essentially, if you can go through to I need language support there to see that, very clearly we have such a diverse community speaking many different languages other than English that are trying to access these resources. And that's a barrier that we are working hard. We now have a team internal to the RRC thinking about what language access issues need to be dealt with, what materials need to be translated. And this is a combination of city staff, volunteers, different institutions, compiling all the information into the right form so that this is accessible truly to everybody, no matter what language you're speaking. Then if you scroll down, we have started to be more dynamic in the way we are providing information, because we have a lot of sort of signals from the call and emails that we're getting about what are the frequently asked questions that people are having. So we've started to collect those kind of FAQs here at the bottom, so that people, often if one person has a question, it means dozens of people have that same question. So those are now kind of in categories which match pretty closely to the back end of the RRC, which is represented by issue area of experts who are constantly sort of hearing these questions, developing responses, and then putting it onto the website.
All right, good stuff, Luke. That is, I like the framing. RRC 2.0 already, 3.5 weeks in. We got a lot else we got to get to here. Can you just quickly hit on this? We have a few more details about this virtual town hall on mental health addiction.
Yep.
That we've been talking about for the last week, and we mentioned some of the speakers yesterday, but we have a new graphic for it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this connects well to what we were talking about on the website. We now highlight every week. We're going to highlight sort of an important event at the top of the website that the RRC team is putting together with community partners to address needs that we're seeing that are emergent over time. And so last week we hosted an employer resources webinar. This week we're hosting one aimed at emotional health and addiction challenges, because we know this is on many people's minds right now. So tomorrow at 12 o'clock, the link's on the website, but we encourage folks to join. We've got a number of experts. Mayor, I know this is an issue that you've worked on over many years, and it's kind of it's of heightened importance right now. And that's why we wanted to put together this great group, which includes RRC staff, Jackie Corbally, and a number of expert panelists. So we encourage anyone who sort of, as you can see on those questions, if you're asking yourself those questions, this webinar is for you. So we'll hope you'll join.
Excellent. Good update, Luke. That's great. I think a great goal to have a webinar, good quality webinar each week. I know the feedback we got from the conversation about the CARES Act and how employers could access some of those resources last week was very positive. I think you got a great team assembled here for tomorrow's discussion. Why don't you stick around and let's talk a little bit more about the CARES Act, and specifically that Paycheck protection program that we've talked about a couple other times in the briefing, but this is, I'm going to keep talking about this as long as it represents real opportunity for Burlingtonians, and I believe it does. This is one of the big programs in the CARES Act that offers the opportunity of really significant direct help to Burlington businesses and Burlington workers whose livelihood is threatened. The unemployment insurance is one big way that the federal government is trying to get help to people, and that we're trying to assist with. The other, I think really one of the next largest items is this Paycheck protection program, a $340 billion program right now, maybe larger, that basically employers apply for if they've been hit by this emergency. And essentially, if you follow the rules of this program, you can have the federal government pay for 2.5 months of your payroll. You can keep your employees on, even if you have taken a big hit on your revenues, and you can either keep working if you are in one of those businesses that can continue to function during the stay-home order, or you can be ready to have your team in place as we get towards the end of this stay-home order, and as we start to turn on different aspects of society again. You won't have to go through that labor-intensive process of bringing people back on. You can still have your team in place working for the city. Sorry, not working for the city. Working for you, working for the company, and getting paid, and with the assistance of the federal government. So here's the thing, though. This program came together in a week, and their way it works is essentially a race. If you are a business that would benefit from this, if you are running a business that would benefit from this, you need to get your paperwork in now. 247 billion as of maybe 48 hours ago. Our sense was $247 billion has been committed to various businesses and organizations. I say businesses, but it's important to remember this isn't just for-profit businesses. This is really any organization that has payroll. So, I know various nonprofits in the community have gotten their applications in recently. And so if you're the head of a nonprofit, you should be thinking about this as well. Here in Vermont, 4,000, this is something else, isn't it? It just sort of shows the scale of this response, how many people are mobilizing to pull together and get through this. 4,486 loans have been approved by Vermont-based lending institutions. These are loans, some of them aren't just Vermont lenders, but these are loans to Vermont organizations as of a couple of days ago. And that totals $853 million has been committed to come into Vermont businesses and to Vermont. Again, this is a Paycheck protection program. So this isn't for the business to do what it wants. The great majority of this money will go to payroll, to keeping people employed, to paying people. That's what most of that $853 million is gonna go to. And we're getting a sense that, this speaks to the strength of Vermont. We're small, we're nimble, we all know each other, and the word is getting out, and we seem to be doing better right now in this part of the state of the race. We're doing better in the race than some comparable small states. I believe we're doing better than Rhode Island is the point here, which is, is saying something given the kind of resources that are in that state. We know here in Burlington that one bank alone, Northfield Savings Bank, has issued $10 million, approved $10 million of loan applications through the PPP. And I do want to say a big thanks to Tom Levitt and his team for that kind of commitment to Burlington. We know he's someone who believes in this community, and I'm not surprised to see that the Northfield Savings Bank having that kind of leadership here. So here, this is an active issue, though. This isn't just a retrospective. This is still a call to action, and I want to say a little bit more about this. So first of all, even if this first 340, it could be that is all at this point committed, but we know that there's another bill that there's been a battle over for more than a week now, I believe, over what they're calling 3.5, in terms of this COVID response, 3.5 from the Congress. This would have another $250 billion for this payment protection program in it. One of the reasons it's taken a while to get approved is my sense is that our representatives and others are in DC fighting for Vermonters here and wanting to make sure that all this money isn't swallowed up by big companies and banks protecting their existing companies. We know that's been one of the concerns and I've heard leaders within the Burlington business community have raised the alarm here about how this program could end up having an unintended effect and just going to kind of bail out established businesses that already have debt. I think there will be protections in this bill from that happening. At the local level, how do we protect against that happening? Well, it really, at the local level, what it takes is direct conversations, and really the RRC has made it a priority to get out into the community, talk to organizations that might not have lending relationships, that might not, there might be language barriers. And so and I'm still putting the call out here. The point here is, if you don't have your paperwork in yet, you think this might help your business, you think this might help the business of a friend or family member, get in touch with the RRC, and we have a great team that is really well trained up in this program and can literally help walk you through what you need to do to get an application in. And if you can go to the next slide, it's I want to call out in particular, let's get the whole slide up here, Will Clavel, who is a part of the CETO team, part of the resource and recovery team. He has been a real leader on our group that is doing this direct outreach to Burlington businesses that are run by New Americans. He already had a lot of those relationships going into this emergency, and we have confirmed that the Community National Bank will take applications specifically from small businesses owned by New Americans. They made this a priority in their program, and we appreciate that. We will get, if your business needs some translation services to apply for this program, we can help with that as well. I do want to point out that people do need to be, if they are going to pursue this, which you're hearing from me again today, I really think all business owners should think about this. It may not be right for every business owner. There are some risks. This is a loan program. It is a loan program that, if you follow the rules, converts to a forgivable loan. So it essentially converts to a direct infusion of money from the federal government. But you do need to follow the rules, and there is some detail in there that you could get tripped up on if you're not paying attention to it, and that you could end up actually owing money on this loan if you don't follow those rules. So I do want to make sure that that message is also getting out. If you have questions about those rules, if you have questions about how you will be able to make the program work for your business, given questions about when society is going to reopen and how quickly you're going to be able to get people back onto payroll, if you've laid people off already at this point, we can help there too. Talk to the experts at the RRC, and if we can't answer the question, we can get you the resources that do. And yeah, keep working at it. If you don't have, if this is still something you're considering, it's not too late. There's likely to be additional funds going here, and I think it's definitely still worth your time to look at. You want to add anything to that, Luke? I know I just said a lot there, but
I think you covered it well. I would just add, so it's not just businesses, it's not just nonprofits, it's sole proprietors, it's independent contractors. If you think you might be eligible, even if you don't think you're eligible and you have been in business since before, I think February 15th, we want you to at least think about this and give us a call, and we can talk it through to see if you're right, if this program is right for you. So just wanted to make that pointedly clear.
All right. Excellent, Luke. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm going to move on to a couple additional updates, significant updates, and then we're going to close with a focus on the cultural resource of the day. So I am relieved to be able to share some positive news about the situation at Decker Towers. When we heard on Saturday that there was a positive case there, we feared the worst. We have seen a couple times already how in nursing homes, one confirmed case can very quickly explode into dozens of cases. And we feared that we might see the same thing take place at Decker Towers. Fortunately, a number of things came together. First of all, it's not a nursing home and may not have exactly the same risks. Medically fragile people living in this large facility. It is not a nursing home and may not be subject to the same risks. It's not subject to the same risks, I think it's fair to say. In addition, Housing Authority and the state of Vermont, there had been weeks of planning for the possibility of an outbreak at Decker Towers, and there was a plan in place, just come into place, for how to deal with a positive case when it happened. And It really, I want to thank the state of Vermont for moving very quickly so that on Easter Sunday, basically 24 hours after the first case was confirmed, 9 nurses were on site testing every resident that they could on Easter Sunday, and then they came back again on Monday to test the residents who they had not been able to test that first day, who had not been available, and as well test all the staff. And our understanding, and I heard this straight from Dr. Levine late last night, is here's what the test said. There's only one additional positive that came back in that testing of those almost approaching 200 people that had been tested. Far better than we feared. We do want to say even that one additional person, this is showing, it shows how serious, we should never forget how serious every additional infection can be. I do, we know that person is fighting the virus, and we are thinking of them. I guess the only other thing I want to say here is this isn't one of those things that we can kind of declare victory and move on. This facility is going to remain a at-risk facility until we have a vaccine. And DHA understands that. That's why they've actually done this kind of remarkable thing and brought on additional staff to have a COVID-19 response team. And we've been in touch with them throughout this. And I think what they've done there is really quite exemplary. And it's probably something that other organizations should learn from. And we're going to try to get them on this briefing later in the week so that we can hear from them directly how they've mobilized themselves. They're going to need to stay vigilant. Their residents are going to need to stay vigilant. Every day there's the risk for new infections. There's also some that we're still early in the virus's arrival in that building, and maybe the testing didn't pick up everything on the first day that might actually already be there. So we are in a conversation with the state about what protocols need to be in place for situations like this. What do we do after that first round of testing? You can't just test one, forget, and then move on. There may be a need for, at the right moment, down the field, and I'm not suggesting right away, but for further testing in this facility. And we're going to be talking to the state about that and working with the state to make sure basically good protocols, best practices are put in place regarding this new issue so that, because this isn't going to be the last facility that has an infection and that needs ongoing vigilance to make sure that we have good awareness and good information, actionable information about what's going on in that facility. I did also want to share, and I think this is significant. We took a step towards this back 3 weeks ago on March 23rd when the council authorized an emergency resolution giving me the authority to convene essentially an emergency meeting of the Board of Tax Abatement, a special. It was a group of the Board of Tax Abatement that convenes just to look at Church Street Marketplace issues. And this is not a Board of Abatement that meets very often. I don't actually recall us doing this. Maybe it happened in the last few years and I just wasn't involved, but I think we have never had a meeting like this where we were really considering broad abatement of taxes to all fees because of circumstances. And so, and really, I don't think anything's like that happened like this in the 40-year history of the marketplace. So we had this special meeting that included me, Councilor Karen Pollock, City Council President Max Tracy, and then 2 members of the Church Street Marketplace Commission that had been appointed to serve on this board by the commission. And we had a good discussion about whether it would be manifestly unjust to charge fee payers on the marketplace fees, full fees, or really any fees at all, given that we are not currently offering any marketplace services to those fee payers, and given that those same fee payers are living through the largest threat to their company and business, their organization they probably have ever faced. We know retailers and restaurants, which is essentially what we have on the Church Street Marketplace, those two sectors have been hit harder than anybody else by the financial emergency so far. And so we discussed this for 15 or 20 minutes, and then we had a unanimous vote to fully abate for the entire quarter the marketplace fees for those fee payers. That amounts to essentially $175,000 of additional relief on top of the other efforts that the city, state, and federal government has made to attempt to help keep our businesses, which employ so many Vermonters and Burlingtonians alive. We further in the decision to abate these fees, we are making it very clear that even though the fees are charged to the property owners of buildings on Church Street, that our intent is for those fees savings to be passed through to the retailers. And I'm quite confident it will work that way. I think most, if not all, fee payers, that's the way these fees are set up, is they are kind of a triple net expense, if you know that term, and it's just a pass-through, essentially, expense that goes to the property owner and then is paid by the commercial tenant. And but to the degree there's any concern about that, that's clear in the decision. So I do want to point out that this is not something that's easy for the city to do. There are still costs related to, particularly to employees of the marketplace and that department of the city that are continuing to work for the city, and they are going to be paid by the city for this quarter. And that is justified by the fact that they are doing duties that are beneficial to the entire downtown and to the broader business community. Cara Alvarez-Rawi, our new CEDO director in particular, has been a real leader in our effort to get out good information on the the Paycheck protection program, for example, and otherwise take steps that don't just help marketplace businesses, but they help all of the downtown stakeholders through those steps. And so we do have challenges ahead, and I want to be clear about that. I mentioned that in the State of the City last week. We've committed to coming to the City Council by the end of April with a financial plan for the city for us to lay out how we as a city government and a city organization are going to weather this storm. We have a team, and we'll be coming. That'll be, I think, the main item of work on the council meeting on April 27th. So finally, I do want to close presentation on an affirming note. I think it is, I'm so appreciative of our cultural team and the work that they are doing to create new opportunities for Burlingtonians during this stay-home period, putting new resources online or getting new resources out to people in new ways that we wouldn't normally have to do. And today's cultural resource of the day is an example of that. The Fletcher Free Library has started distributing free books for kids at Burlington School District's 11 meal sites around Burlington. And I know we mentioned this briefly the other day, but now we've got this great picture of one of these sites in action. I think this is the site down at Auburn Mill off of Pine Street. And again, this is one of the 11 sites that something like 1,600 meals a day are being distributed from. and now there are also books there. And this is a weather, permitting kind of service, and it varies by site. But the books range from board books for baby to young adult books for high schoolers. And we did want to have that last note there, be clear to people. We want to make sure that these relief centers, these places where people are going to help, don't become a vector for transmission of the virus. So in the background there, I love it. You can see there's the signage set up for the people. There's a lot in that picture if you look carefully at it. You can see a line leading up to the meal table in the background, and the signage telling people to stand 6 feet apart, households to stand 6 feet apart as they're waiting their turn to pick up the meals. And then spaced further apart from that is this table for the books. We are asking that only one household be at the table at a time, so that we are giving people the proper space. We got one more picture, Olivia Dewey, showing the kind of resources that kids can get at these sites. And I think that's a great place to close it for the day. A great reminder of there are other things in life than the virus, and we're going to keep working hard to keep this community strong, to get us to the brighter day when we are leaving our homes and restarting the economy and restarting the community. So with that, Olivia, do we have any questions in the queue?
No questions from the media for today.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Luke for joining us, and we'll see everybody tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you. Stay safe.